Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the Pro Wrestling Logic YouTube channel. Welcome to those of you who are new. Subscribe, like, comment below if you like what we're doing around here. Bit of changes. We're putting the TNT series on hold for a little bit. We're going to go through the Saturday night's main event series as planned, along with regular intervals of the weekly current programming. That's at a fan request, so that's what we're doing there. As for right now, we are doing the uh, June 12th, 2020 SmackDown review. I'm actually going to say that this is a better show than normal for SmackDown anyway. Not really, as most people know, not particularly this huge SmackDown fan, but certainly it's an interesting dichotomy because I was very offended by the opening angle of the show. We'll get into that in a second, but overall, the opening and ending were not the best. The middle of the program, the Intercontinental title match, probably one of the better things I've seen on WWE TV in a long while. So certainly supportive of that. Might be the best match I've seen from them in over a year, maybe. I mean, I can't off the top of my head think of much that was better. At least in 2020. Certainly one of those kind of weird situations, but in any event, interested in kind of looking at SmackDown for what it is. So we open the program with uh, the recap of the Jeff Hardy and Sheamus storyline from the car accident storyline with Jeff being, named drunk and all that. And I will be honest, it to me this is at the level of a pregnancy angle. To me this is at the level of a death related angle. There are certain angles that shouldn't be done. um, I will openly admit I'm probably hypersensitive being a recovering addict, and I would be interested in other folks' opinions who are in recovery whether or not this angle should have even happened. Anyway, uh, Jeff Hardy and Sheamus are in the ring for the contract signing for Backlash on Sunday. Wow, if this is part of Backlash, I'm not really that impressed. Anyway, Renee Young's in the ring, and she introduced Sheamus first, and he comes out with a curtain, a doctor, and a security force. Is that like a lion, a witch, and a wardrobe? Anyway, um, Cole's surprised that he didn't come out alone. Sheamus apologizes uh, to Renee Young for what's about to happen. Sheamus points out they're not here to protect him, they're here to protect Hardy. Sheamus demands that Hardy take a urine test. Hardy comes out, he admits to being an alcoholic. He goes to a meeting every week. Wow. If they think that AA meetings are weekly, then well, um, they haven't really delved into addiction. They're actually supposed to be daily for people that are in recovery. But anyway, um, and Hardy goes. He wants to be a beacon of light for people like himself. He agrees to take the test, and Sheamus brings a doctor who's going to administer the test. Um, these tests usually take anywhere from 24 to 72 hours. Somehow, the results of this test is available in under 20 minutes. Um, so Hardy goes behind the curtain, does what he needs to do. He fills up the entire jar, so maybe he had a big gulp before going on TV. Um, Sheamus does a PSA about not doing drugs. Says don't be like Jeff Hardy. Don't fail a test. Hardy grabs the jar of urine and splashes it in the face of Sheamus. I ha ha ha. I mean, this is just sophomoric humor that Like, if this was a real test, I don't think anyone's going to be throwing urine in anybody's face. I think they'd be taking it seriously, and if you're going to do the urine spot, do it later in the show, not at this point before you know the test results. Anyway, so we come back from commercial. Sheamus is in the bathroom. He's rinsing out his mouth. He's washing his face. Doctor tells Sheamus that Hardy passed. As a first segment, again, and I say this week by week, but this is broadcast television, which means it should be higher level, one would think, especially with all the cord cutters now. It should be higher level than your average run-of-the-mill cable television program. This is, for a casual fan, turn the channel. It's garbage. And not only is it garbage from a who would watch this if they weren't already a fan of the product, but it's garbage from the standpoint of who would watch this in the face of actual decent storytelling and go, yeah, I'm going to watch this over watching something on HBO or over watching something on a more established network. I just don't understand when they do angles of this nature what the logic is. Oh, we're connecting with people that have addiction problems. Really? If you're connecting with the average person that has addiction problems, they want to hear the recovery part. They don't want to be reminded of how easy it is to slip. It just really shows how out of touch and inept, emotionally inept, the writing team is here. Anyway, so we go on to something good, and that is the Cesaro and Shinsei Nakamura Tag Team Championship non-title match with the New Day. So Big E is the New Day are wearing armbands for the various people that are having difficulties right now, which is cool. Really good match. Early advantage to the New Day. And we see Big E using his tag team partner as a bit of a lawn dart. Nakamura fights back and knocks him off the apron. An uppercut by Cesaro keeps things going. We go to another commercial break. Too many of these, just poorly placed, but that's just it's a pet peeve of mine. I don't like mid-match breaks. I never do. I'd rather have the breaks be during a promo and come back to a guy still talking than to have a good match interrupted by a break. Anyway, Cesaro is in control. He's got a chin lock. Kingston gets a hot tag. He goes nuts on Nakamura. He hits the boom drop, and Cesaro blocks the Trouble in Paradise. Kingston pushes off Nakamura, hits a crossbody. Nakamura gets the knee up, but and rolls through into a, I guess, small package for the win. So Nakamura and Cesaro at this point have beaten the tag team champions. Obviously, Sami Zayn still honoring the COVID thing. I really do wonder, how far is WWE? AEW talent seems to be mostly back, but how far is WWE and UFC and other sporting-related companies overall, even, your team sports, football, basketball, baseball, whatever, how long are they going to let people stay home? Does that end in August? Does it end in September? Does it end at the beginning of 2021? It's interesting to me as we enter into the potential of a second wave here in the States, what that looks like and how long companies are going to be willing to pay for people to sit at home. To me, do we enter a place where, okay, you can stay home, but we're going to freeze your contract until you return to work? and you don't get paid during that time. I mean, how do you combat the losses associated with this if it goes on for several more months? I think, it's fair to say through the summer, but when we get into the fall, when we get into the winter, are there still going to be people that aren't working? And that's, an interesting dichotomy, at least to me. Anyway, so Otis and Tucker getting ready for the match. I don't know where Tucker went, but he was gone. He now has gear that says Tucky, which makes me think of Rubber Ducky, which is not exactly what I want to be thinking when looking at a supposedly tough wrestler. Anyway, Mandy Rose kisses Otis, hands him the Money in the Bank briefcase. Tucker trying to note that Otis should cash in. And so Sheamus and Hardy are brawling backstage. Officials run in to break this up. I mean, I don't think... Let's suppose you don't subscribe to the network. Is there anything on Backlash that you honestly believe would make people go, I've got to plunk down $10? I don't think so. I think the next time that might happen is the first show back with fans. I think that could do something. And I even think that if I'm WWE and I want to get an Impact and a Rise, I purposely hold off the first show with fans being like a network special pay-per-view kind of thing. I don't do it on a Monday Night Raw or Friday Night SmackDown or even NXT. I do it at a paid tier just to see if it helps spike the numbers. And certainly with Paul Heyman being removed from creative on Raw and Bruce Pritchard overseeing everything, I worry about that too. Not because necessarily I think Bruce is bad in creative, and those who watch the channel know that I've done an interview with Bruce that goes almost an hour. I admire Bruce Pritchard, but are we really at a place where anybody can oversee 2 programs of WWE content and not have some storyline overlapping or storyline redundancy? I don't know that that's possible, even if the best writer in the world right now was doing that. I don't know that 2 shows is appropriate for them, and I think part of the reason Vince burnt out the way he did was because he's just seen too much content over the years. Anyway, really awesome video package of the Intercontinental title is up next. Corey Graves does a voiceover talking about the 40-plus year history of the championship. Awesome. I wish they did this for every championship. I wish they did this at least 3 or 4 times a year. And, I'd love to see one for the U.S. Championship on Raw. That would be phenomenal. No pun intended, with AJ Styles coming up next. But I think, certainly when you have the network that's got, 15,000, 20,000 hours now of content, to not put together video packages, even one a month, of historic things is just, it's lazy, it's stupid, it's improper use of a brand, it's all sorts of things. So, they highlight several champions through this several-minute video. Highlighted includes Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, Pat Patterson, Ultimate Warrior, Triple H, Randy Orton, Steve Austin, and The Rock. What's sad is, all those guys, if you think about it, are from an era that ended almost 20 years ago. So it says a lot about the product in the last 15 to 17 years that very few, if any, highlights were shown of the last almost 2 decades. That says a lot about even how the company views its own talent and its own creative in the last 2 decades. And if you think about that, go even further, that's half the life of the Intercontinental title, which is underrepresented in a 3 or 4 minute video package. Anyway, so we go to the Intercontinental Championship match, the 84th, and I went and looked it up, 84th Intercontinental Champion will be crowned here. Will it be Daniel Bryan? Daniel Bryan, which actually would mean he would not be the 84th. He'd still be 83rd because he's held the championship before. Or will it be AJ Styles? It ends up being AJ Styles, who is your 84th Intercontinental Champion of all time. Which, looking that up, I was surprised. I thought there would be more, but that is not the case. As I mentioned, SmackDown, this is probably the best SmackDown match I've seen, 10 years maybe? I don't even know how far back I'd have to go. Maybe the SmackDown 6 era 15 years ago when Heyman was in charge. But it's been a long, long time since there was a match this good. Of course, because the audience isn't conditioned to it, I expect it to not do well in the ratings because they're just not conditioned to expect longer wrestling matches, and I think you'd have to recondition them over 3 to 9 months, depending. I don't know what that conditioning looks like, but you'd have to have longer matches on purpose on television. And you'd have to do it at least every other week before the crowd would get like, oh, it's going to be one of those matches. It's going to be one of those nights. I think you can do it. I don't think it's impossible. I'm not of the belief that today's television audience couldn't be retrained, but it would take a commitment that I don't think Vince or the writing staff has. So I'm actually curious how they got this much time to begin with. That would be an interesting backstory. So they have a really good match, tells an amazing story. The match goes 30 plus minutes, almost 40 minutes, and runs through not one, not two, but not three, but four commercials. Bryan starts with an advantage, using the wrists, and Styles hits or gets hit with a standing dropkick early. They go to the floor. Bryan does a suicide dive back from the first break. Bryan's in control, landing a number of knees to the back, and Bryan works over the left arm. Working over the body parts is one of the main stories of this match, which is very old school, very traditional, and proof that, again, that style can be compelling if told right. I don't know what a live crowd would have done with this match. I think they would have kept them, but I don't know that, and I'd like to hope that they would have. Anyway, so Bryan fights back and catches Styles with a knee to the midsection. His arm is still damaged. Styles takes over and works over the arm. Bryan catches him with a knee, doesn't work. Bryan works on Styles' knee and rolls up Styles for a near fall. They trade kicks in the corner. Bryan attempts a running drop kick. Styles charges and hits a sunset flip for near fall. Styles and Bryan then trade a series of quick pinfall attempts, and they collect themselves mid-ring, almost like, who's going to top this? Where's this going to end? There's question of who is better, which remains throughout the match. This is phenomenal storytelling. It's proper storytelling. We come back from break again. Bryan's back in control. Continues to work over Styles' arm. He goes for the yes lock. Styles fights out, sends him to the floor. Bryan catches him when he leaps out to the floor and sends him shoulder first into the ring post. Bryan goes after the elbow and applies a hammerlock. Well, how long has it been since we've seen a hammerlock? Good gosh. Bryan pulls way back and rolls up Styles for another near fall. Back to the attempted running drop kick, but that does not work, and Bryan crashes into the corner, and Styles slams Bryan's leg into the apron. Styles works over the leg for several minutes. Styles ties up the leg in the ropes. Bryan placed Styles on the top turnbuckle and hits a Rana, but Bryan attempts the yes kicks again, but Styles ducks and trades hard strikes with him. They collide in the middle of the ring apron, both going for clotheslines. Another break. They're trading snug shots in the middle of the ring, coming back. Again, they go to the floor. He attempts a second suicide dive, does Bryan, but Styles cut him off with a kick to the arm. Again, going back to body parts. Phenomenal, no pun intended, work. To me, it's more real fight simulated. I'm not believing that we have to be Japanese where every move counts, although that would be my preference. But you certainly, at the very least, should be returning to an injured body part throughout a longer match or even a mid-level match. I get it if you've got like less than 5 minutes. Working a body part isn't going to work, but when you have the time, do it. Styles goes to the phenomenal forearm. Bryan catches him and locks in an armbar. Styles reversed that into the calf crusher. Bryan countered back into the armbar and into the triangle. Styles attempts the style clash, but Bryan breaks free and rocks Styles with a hard kick to the side of the head. Ouch. Then we see Bryan places Styles on the top, but gets knocked off. Styles kicks Bryan off again, but Bryan keeps coming back and then hits a belly to back suplex off the top turnbuckle, which is a thing of beauty. I mean, a lot of people do this, but Bryan does the fold up really well, and so that's always fun to watch. Back from the break, we see Bryan rock Styles with uppercuts, and then Bryan does a backflip landing on his bad leg. Styles then hits a reverse DDT. Perhaps you have Bryan crumble landing under the bad leg, and then when he tries to get up, you do the same DDT spot. Just a really nitpicky thing, but maybe you go that way. Styles hits a Pele kick, followed up with a brainbuster for a super close near fall, probably the closest in the match to the point. Bryan rolls him up off the attempted Styles clash again. Styles cannot get the Styles clash no matter how hard he tries, which is another intricacy of the story. And then we see a series of German suplexes between both guys. And then Bryan goes to a series of elbows, applies the yes lock, but Styles makes it to the ropes. Bryan grabs Styles' arms and hits kicks to the head. Bryan sets up for a running knee, but Styles caught him with the Styles clash here out of nowhere, which was a really innovative use of the move he'd been trying to hit for a while. Came out of nowhere, which is a good thing. Styles then hits the phenomenal forearm to win the Intercontinental Championship as your 84th champion and his first Intercontinental Championship reign. Renee Young interviews the new champion in the ring. Styles really doesn't say anything terribly wonderful, just that he's the best champion. I wish he'd said the word Intercontinental in there. And we move on to more junk. The recap of the Miz and Morrison being annoying to Braun Strowman thing. Strowman then cuts a promo, says he's got there's a lot going on, new champions, drug tests, and the like. Strowman said that he likes Otis, but he's willing to take him out if he needs to. If he wants to cash in Money in the Bank, so be it. Ring Crew sets up a party for Bayley and Sasha. I wonder why they don't have a team name. Anyway, so they recap the win from not too long ago over Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross. So they come out. Bayley notes that she's the most dominant champion and it can be lonely at the top. She's not alone. She's with her best friend. And Banks said her role models, they are role models and leaders. If these are leaders, I'm scared for the future. Anyway, and I enjoy both, but no, I don't want them leading me. Anyway, so Bayley notes again, or Banks says their role models, as I just mentioned, and the titles represent their friendship. Bayley's about to read a poem, gets cut off. Bliss and Cross are out. Sounds like a legal team. They interrupt. They promise to win the championship's Backlash. Bayley's furious about this and they're interrupted once again by the Iconics. Why are these people still employed when other people were let go? My gosh, charisma black hole. Anyway, so the Iconics yammer on a bit about winning the championships on Sunday. They noted that they had taken down Bayley and Banks on Raw, and if they don't want this to happen on SmackDown, they shouldn't turn their backs on Bliss and Cross. Then they attack. I would have, if you had to do this segment, which you really didn't, it was time filler, as was the main event as well. I would have put this before the Intercontinental Championship match. Matter of fact, I would have closed with that. I would have closed with the Intercontinental title match because ain't nothing going to follow it. And I feel bad for the talents that had to try. So, Kayla Braxton interviews The Miz and John Morrison in the back. They're tired of playing, or they tried to play a new music video, but they get cut off. Strowman's music interrupts them. And then we have a Matt Riddle video package again. My over-under is they ruin him within 6 weeks. I hope I'm wrong. I want to be wrong. Please let me be wrong. I don't like 6 men. I guess this is fine, although it's given less than 10 minutes. It's fine for what it is. Babyfaces have your early advantage. The Heavy Machinery folks give Miz a headbutt. Tucker gives Morrison a backdrop. But Morrison lands on his feet, leaps over the middle rope, but Tucker caught him with a power slam for a near fall. And then Otis and Tucker launched Strowman into Ziggler in the corner. Tucker gave Ziggler a standing vertical suplex. Corbin appears from the back on the big screen. He approaches Mandy Rose and harasses her. Corbin basically implies that she wants to be with him. He can't blame her. He's a king after all. Corbin notes that Rose is fantasizing about him. Back from the break, and Miz, Morrison, and Ziggler are in control of the match. Strowman and Tucker were on their own because Otis is in the back, and he is fighting with Corbin, which, I mean, from the standpoint of if this were real, wouldn't you be angry that your partner deserted you mid-match? Doesn't this make him look like an idiot? Anyway, Ziggler slows the pace down, front face lock, heels isolate Tucker, and, there's an attempt at a tag. It doesn't happen. Otis and Mandy Rose then make their way back to the ring. Otis gets a hot tag, runs wild, everybody knocks everybody down with shoulder blocks on the outside. Otis hits the Caterpillar on Ziggler for the win. Poor Dolph Ziggler. And we close the show with the good guys celebrating. Overall, man, some really good stuff, but some really stupid junk. Like, this show is bipolar. It's either there's some really good segments or just junk that could be tossed away. And, the six man, if you need to fill time, is fine. But should not have gone on after. Nothing should have gone after the Intercontinental Championship match, in my opinion. Anyway, that'll close us out for this audio. As mentioned, we're starting the Saturday night's main event series. We're going to do some superstar stuff. Lots of cool stuff coming up. Like, subscribe, comment below, and we appreciate you. Until next time, keep your feet on the ground, your mind in the moment. Bye, everybody.